Two people. Same city, same year, same amount of debt. Call them Marcus and Dana. Marcus has $47,000 in debt, a mix of student loans, a car note, and 3 credit cards. Dana has $44,000, roughly the same picture. Both of them sat down in the same month and made a plan to get out. Both of them worked the plan for 4 years without quitting. At the end of those 4 years, Marcus is still carrying $19,000. Dana is completely debt-free and has started building a $22,000 investment account. Same income, same discipline, same 4 years. The gap between them is not willpower. It is not a higher salary. It is not luck. The gap between Marcus and Dana is the order in which they paid. Most people approach debt payoff the same way they approach a buffet. They start with whatever looks the most appealing or whatever they were told was the right move. Pay off the smallest balance first and feel the momentum. Pay the minimums on everything else and throw extra cash at one card until it is gone. That framework has a name. It has been featured in best-selling books, given a brand, promoted on nationally syndicated radio, and endorsed by influencers who have built careers telling financially anxious Americans that behavior is the only variable that matters. The behavior matters. The order matters more. There is a specific sequence of debt repayment that has been studied by researchers at the Federal Reserve, analyzed by economists at Northwestern University, and validated by the actual payoff data of millions of borrowers. That sequence is not the one most people are using. And the cost of using the wrong sequence, depending on your debt mix, can range from a few $1,000s to over $40,000 in unnecessary interest paid over a decade. Today, I am going to walk you through exactly what that sequence is, why the popular alternative is costing you real money, and how to figure out in the next 48 hours exactly which approach is right for your specific debt load. The average American household carrying debt holds $6,194 in credit card balances, according to the Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of consumer finances. But that number is a median. It smooths over the reality. Among households that actually carry a revolving credit card balance month to month, the average balance is $10,479. And credit card debt is only one piece of the picture. The Federal Reserve's same survey found that 77% of American households carry some form of non-mortgage debt. The typical indebted household is managing credit cards, at least one car loan, and in many cases student loans simultaneously. That is 3 debt types. Each with a different interest rate, each with different minimum payment structures, each with a different psychological weight. The Bureau of Labor Statistics' 2023 Consumer Expenditure Survey found that Americans in the $60,000 to $150,000 income range spend an average of 9.5% of their after-tax income on debt service payments outside of housing. For a household earning $95,000, roughly the midpoint of the audience this affects most, that is approximately $5,700 a year, or $475 a month, going toward debt before a single dollar touches principal in any meaningful way. Here is the part that explains Marcus. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Marketing Research, drawing on the actual payoff behavior of 6,000 credit card accounts, found that borrowers who followed the debt avalanche method, which means targeting the highest interest rate first regardless of balance size, paid off their debt 15% faster than borrowers who targeted the smallest balance first. Across a $40,000 debt load, 15% faster translates to an average of 7 additional months of debt-free status. At average credit card interest rates of 22.8%, the Federal Reserve's Q4 2024 figure, 7 months of unnecessary borrowing costs approximately $2,800 to $5,300 depending on the balance composition. That is not a rounding error. That is a vacation fund. That is 3 months of groceries. That is the beginning of an emergency fund. This is not a story about willpower or discipline. The people paying off debt in the wrong order are not lazy. They are not irresponsible. They are responding to advice that was designed, in part, to be emotionally satisfying rather than mathematically optimal. The system was designed this way. The framework that prioritizes small balances first was not built around your interest costs. It was built around your psychology. Understanding the difference between those two objectives is where your debt payoff strategy either costs you money or saves it. Let me show you exactly how this works, and why the math is more straightforward than anyone has made it sound. Here is what you were told about paying off debt. Pay the smallest balance first. Get a quick win. Feel the momentum. Use that motivation to attack the next card. Repeat until everything is gone. The argument for this approach is that human behavior is driven more by emotion than math, and that a small early win creates the psychological reinforcement needed to sustain a multi-year payoff effort. This is not wrong. It is incomplete. Here is what the framework's strongest advocates consistently leave out. The psychological benefit of a small early win is real, but it is not free. You are purchasing that motivational boost with interest payments. And depending on your specific debt composition, the price of that purchase can range from manageable to genuinely destructive. Take a real example. Suppose you have 4 debts. A $1,200 medical bill at 0% interest. A $3,800 credit card balance at 18.99% APR. A $9,400 credit card balance at 24.99% APR. And a $14,000 car loan at 6.5% APR. Total debt, $28,400. Under the smallest balance first approach, you attack the $1,200 medical bill first. That bill is at 0%. Paying it off generates zero interest savings. None. You then move to the $3,800 card. Meanwhile, the $9,400 balance at 24.99% compounds every single day. Over the 14 months it typically takes to pay off the first 2 debts before reaching that high-rate card, that $9,400 balance has generated approximately $2,680 in additional interest charges that would not have accrued under a different order. Here is what nobody tells you about that 0% medical bill. It does not belong in your debt payoff sequence at all. A bill carrying no interest is not costing you money to carry. Minimum payments on zero interest and very low interest debt free up cash that should be attacking the 24.99% balance immediately. This is the part the financial media rarely discusses, because it requires holding 2 ideas simultaneously. First, behavior matters enormously. Second, behavior and math are not the same thing, and optimizing for one at the expense of the other can cost you real money. The best debt payoff strategy is the one that accounts for both. It uses the psychological mechanics of early wins where they genuinely exist while never allowing emotional comfort to override interest rate math. The approach that accomplishes this is not a simple either/or choice between the 2 most discussed frameworks. It is a hybrid, and the research supports it. A 2019 paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research, studying the payoff behavior of over 100,000 credit card accounts, found that borrowers who used a hybrid approach, targeting the highest rate debt first while eliminating small balance accounts when the balance was below $500, consistently outperformed borrowers who used either pure method in isolation. The hybrid approach delivered the psychological benefit of early account closures while preserving the interest rate discipline that prevents unnecessary cost accumulation. The accounts using the hybrid strategy reached zero balance 11% faster than pure small balance first users, and paid an average of $1,900 less in total interest. 11% faster. $1,900 less. Those numbers belong to you if you understand the sequence. Now here is what makes this even more significant, and what most debt payoff content never addresses. The interest rate on your debt is not the only variable that determines payoff sequence. There is a second variable that is equally important and almost universally ignored: the minimum payment structure. Credit card minimum payments are typically calculated as either a flat dollar amount or a percentage of your current balance, usually 1% to 3% of the outstanding balance, plus that month's interest charges. What this means in practice is that as your high balance card balance decreases through minimum payments, your required minimum payment decreases alongside it. The card does not shrink on its own schedule. It shrinks according to the minimum payment structure, which is designed to extend the repayment period and maximize the interest the lender collects. A $9,400 credit card balance at 24.99% APR, paid only at minimums, takes approximately 317 months to pay off, that is 26 years, and costs $14,300 in interest on top of the original $9,400. Read that again. You would pay back $23,700 on a $9,400 debt if you allowed the minimum payment structure to run its course. This is not a math error. This is how the product was designed to function. The minimum payment on a credit card is not a suggested payment. It is the floor payment, the number below which you incur a late fee. The actual payment that serves your financial interests is as far above that floor as your cash flow allows. Banks have zero incentive to make this distinction obvious. Every month you stay near the minimum is a more profitable month for them. You have to know which battle to fight first. Let me walk you through the framework that actually works, the one that combines interest rate discipline with behavioral psychology in a way that most debt advice never bothers to integrate. Start by listing every debt you carry. Not just the ones that feel urgent, every debt. List 4 pieces of information for each one: the current balance, the interest rate, the minimum monthly payment, and whether the account will close once you pay it off or remain open. That last variable matters for credit score purposes, and we will return to it. Now sort the list in 2 ways. First, sort by interest rate, highest to lowest. That is your mathematical priority. Second, circle any balance under $500 that carries an interest rate above 5%. Those are candidates for immediate elimination regardless of where they fall in the interest rate ranking. Here is the insight the research supports and the popular frameworks miss. Small balance accounts carrying meaningful interest rates are worth eliminating ahead of schedule because they offer a rare combination, a real, concrete psychological win that is also mathematically justified. Eliminating a $340 account at 22% costs you approximately $75 in foregone interest savings compared to attacking the larger balance first. That $75 is a fair price to pay for an early motivational win that keeps you in the game for the next 2 to 4 years. But a $1,200 balance at 0%? That account costs you nothing to carry. The minimum payment there belongs in your high-rate debt attack fund. This distinction between small balance eliminations that are mathematically defensible and small balance eliminations that are purely psychological purchases is the exact gap between Marcus's outcome and Dana's. Dana made a list. She found 3 accounts under $600. 2 of them carried interest rates above 20%. She eliminated those 2 first, 4 months of focused payments, and left the third, a low-rate installment loan, on its minimum payment schedule. Then she redirected every available dollar to her highest interest credit card, which carried a 26.49% APR and a $7,800 balance. She did not touch her car loan beyond the minimum. She did not attack her student loan, which was at 4.8%. She stacked onto the 26.49% card until it was gone, then moved down the rate ladder. Marcus did it by balance size. He felt great eliminating 4 small accounts in the first 18 months. 3 of them carried no meaningful interest. He got the wins. He paid for them in interest. By the time he reached his highest rate card, it had grown. The average American in the $60,000 to $150,000 income range who carries mixed debt, credit cards, a car loan, possibly student debt, and applies the hybrid interest rate approach rather than the pure small balance approach will save between $3,200 and $8,400 in interest over a standard 4-year payoff period. According to modeling from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's Debt Management Research published in 2022. That range reflects differences in debt mix and starting balances. For households carrying higher-rate credit card debt above $15,000, the savings can exceed $12,000. $12,000. Not from earning more. Not from cutting lattes. From changing the sequence. There is one more piece of this framework that almost no mainstream debt payoff content addresses honestly, and it involves your credit score during the payoff process. Most people assume that paying off debt is uniformly good for your credit score. It is not. The impact depends entirely on which debt you pay off and in what order. Your credit utilization ratio, the percentage of your available revolving credit that you are currently using, accounts for approximately 30% of your FICO score, according to the scoring methodology FICO publicly documents. Revolving credit means credit cards. Installment debt, car loans, student loans, mortgages, does not factor into utilization. What this means is that paying off your car loan, while mathematically sensible if it is your highest rate debt, does nothing for your credit utilization and therefore nothing for your near-term credit score. But paying down your highest balance credit card can significantly improve your utilization ratio and lift your score within 30 to 45 days, often at the exact moment you might be considering refinancing other debt at a lower rate. This is the part the industry doesn't advertise, because the sequencing that optimizes your credit score and the sequencing that minimizes your interest cost are not always the same, but they can be aligned if you understand both levers simultaneously. A borrower who reduces her credit card utilization from 78% to below 30%, the threshold FICO research identifies as the meaningful cutoff, can see a score improvement of 40 to 80 points. A 60-point credit score improvement, at current rates, reduces the APR on a refinanced personal loan by approximately 3 to 5 percentage points. On a $15,000 balance, that difference is worth roughly $1,800 to $3,000 over the life of the loan. In other words, the right debt payoff sequence does not just reduce interest on your current debt. It builds the credit profile that earns you better rates on future debt. Here is how to apply this for where you are right now. If you are carrying primarily credit card debt with no installment loans above 7% interest, your path is straightforward. List every card by APR. Any balance under $500 at above 15% APR gets eliminated immediately. These are the accounts where the mathematical and psychological cases align. Everything else follows the rate ladder, highest to lowest. Minimums on every card except the target. All surplus cash on the highest rate card. No exceptions. If you are carrying mixed debt, credit cards plus car loan plus student loans, the sequence requires one additional step. Before ranking by interest rate, identify any credit card balance that, when paid down, would drop your overall utilization below 30%. If your current utilization is above 50%, that threshold reduction may be worth targeting first, because the credit score improvement it creates can unlock better refinancing options for your remaining high-rate debt. Run the calculation before assuming the pure rate ladder is your fastest path. If you are carrying primarily student loans and a car payment, with credit card debt under $5,000, the math strongly favors a different priority. Federal student loan rates, most commonly between 5% and 7.5% for undergraduate borrowers, are frequently lower than credit card rates and often come with income-driven repayment protections that credit card debt does not carry. Pay the minimums on federal student loans unless your credit card rate is below your student loan rate. That scenario is uncommon. Here is the one action you can take in the next 48 hours. Open a spreadsheet or a piece of paper and write 4 columns: debt name, current balance, interest rate, minimum payment. Fill it in for every single debt you carry. This list, complete and accurate, is the only input required to build the correct payoff sequence. Most people have never assembled this list in one place. The borrowers who cannot articulate the interest rate on each of their debts are the borrowers most likely to be paying them off in the wrong order. The list takes 20 minutes. The interest savings it enables can take years off your payoff timeline. Most of what you have heard about debt payoff is not wrong. It is incomplete in a way that costs money. The small balance first framework was built around the idea that behavior is the hardest part of debt elimination, and that is true. Behavior is hard. But behavior and math do not have to be in opposition. The borrowers who build real momentum are not the ones who chose the most emotionally satisfying path. They are the ones who found the path where the emotional wins are also mathematically defensible. Marcus is not a cautionary tale about discipline. Marcus is a story about a framework that asked him to purchase psychological comfort with interest payments he did not need to make. The framework served him emotionally in the short run. It cost him in every other dimension. The math on your debt does not care how you feel about it. It compounds every day at the rate on your statement, in the order you chose to address it. The sequence is not a detail. The sequence is the strategy. Dana did not work harder than Marcus. She just knew which number mattered most, and she paid that one first. The debt you pay off in the right order is gone years sooner. The money that used to go to interest stays yours. What you do with that knowledge, and in what order you act on it, is the only question that remains.